Okay, so I closed down my agency after 3 years, and today I decided I'm gonna have a one-on-one conversation with you. I'm gonna tell you all my mistakes that I've made during those 3 years, and maybe for some of you it's gonna be very helpful or not. And the problem with those mistakes is that those mistakes were mostly fundamental. So all those mistakes came from the first year, as it usually happens. But the problem with a new agency is that you never know what's your mistake, because everything you do based on the rules, the book rules, that sometimes don't even work in real life. So what I realized is that most of the rules, life rules, relationship rules that I know don't really work here, because everything that you've done before that is just different reality. See, when you start your agency, you start to have conversations, relationships with very different people that you've never had. I think it's gonna be better if I just start from the scratch, from the day one, the day that I opened my first ever office and started hiring my first employees. Because before that I've had teams that worked remotely in other countries, but it's very different when you have a team, located team here, because now you become both HR, you become the boss, you become the CEO, you become everything, and you don't have any experience in none of that. So you need to gain your experience from day one. So the way it usually happens when you start an agency is that you have one skill that you have learned how to monetize that skill, and you start doing yourself. You are just a one-man show. So for me it was a skill of video editing. So I knew how to edit videos, and also I knew how to make people famous. But the difference was that I was doing all that alone, starting from the business side, cold calls, cold DMs, editing and posting everything. The ecosystem that I have built at the moment is an ecosystem that consists of 9 people, and all of that you just started without any experience. So the way you start everything, the way you build the fundament, that's how the team is gonna carry after you. So everything that you teach them, the result is gonna double after a year. And if you started it with some mistakes, the mistakes are gonna also double, unfortunately. So that's why I decided to close down my agency at the moment and start over. But this video is not just gonna be about my mistakes. It's also gonna be about the right things that I did. For example, I will try to teach you how to find your first customers as 20-year-old, for example, with no experience, with no idea how everything works. Because see, when you are 18 and you have one skill that you are just doing for yourself, sometimes you have no idea how to use that skill for other people. And it's completely different when you are doing it for yourself and for other people, because when you are doing it for yourself, you control your own time. And you also have your own desires. So the preferences from other people are gonna be very different from what you did yesterday for you. So you need to constantly change, you need to constantly adapt to whatever it is. So if you are a 20-year-old, you have one skill that you now feel that you can also use to help other people and also make some money. The way I did it is that I realized that I'm 22, I have this skill, and I'm not really making any money from this skill. So I was doing all that for free, basically. So what I realized that now I can do that free work for other people. So the problem with all these young people is that when they reach out, they immediately ask for money without showing any expertise, without showing any experience, any proof that they can guarantee results. But when you reach out to people who are much higher than you and offer them free work, believe me, no one is gonna say no. If you are a great professional, no one is gonna say no, for sure. And that's how I gained my first clients. And my first ever client was a billionaire guy. And for me, like having no office, no employees, nothing, and just working with a billionaire at 22 was something very euphoric. Because see, I'm from a country that almost has no billionaires. For me, working with such people was something much more than just a business. I saw those people as my mentors. So basically, I offered them free work, and in exchange, I will have their contacts, and I will have them as my mentors. Because at 22, I actually realized that I need some guidance. And I was lucky enough to have some people who had like much higher status than me and who could also mentor me. And while reaching out to them, you need also to be very smart. Because see, if you want to target some person who already has 1 million subscribers, you need to realize that his DMs are actually flooded with people like you. Even me, I have only 2,000 followers on my IG page. And I'm getting too many offers sometimes. But I never respond to them because there is no credibility under those offers. And what I did differently is that I just started working for him without even saying him. So I found this person who was a public speaker, somewhat famous at the time. I saw that his knowledge is actually very impressive, but the content was mid. So what I did, I decided that I'm gonna take his videos, re-edit them, and repurpose them on my pages. At the time I had an Instagram page with 200,000 followers and my YouTube was at 600k. So when I used his videos and reposted them on my channels, one of the videos got 70 million views. And of course, I mean, he became this overnight sensation. So what I did immediately is that I reached out to him and said, look, this video that you've already seen, for sure, was made by me. So I just wanted to make sure that no one is gonna take any credit for the video that I've made. And like, imagine that kind of offer when you already offer something that you have done for him and he had no idea. So of course, that kind of approach is gonna be very different from other approaches, from other offers. And the first thing that he said to me is, he asked for my WhatsApp number and he said he's gonna call me. He called me maybe after a week. So like, imagine the waiting pressure of mine when I was just waiting for the whole week for a billionaire guy to call me. I mean, that's already something very unusual. But I waited for a week. He called me and he said that he already watched my videos. He's done some research. He asked about my assets, like what I have, what I can offer. And of course I had my team pages, my channels. But I did something very canny, I think. I didn't say him that he's my first client. I said, I've made many people famous, actually, so I lied, but it didn't really matter to him if I lied or not, because he actually saw the result before even having the first call with me. So imagine this, like his most viewed videos were maybe 3 or 4 millions, and then all of a sudden now he has one that hit 70 million. And then I did another one that hit 50, then 40, then 30. I mean, now he had I guess we did maybe 3 billion views in 6 months. And of course, as a public speaker, his business actually benefited from that exposure. So for example, if he used to charge $50,000 for an evening, now he started charging 100k for an evening. And his bookings grew by 475%. So imagine having speaking engagements every week. Now he started having speaking events every 3 days. So imagine now you are charging on average 100k every third day. So I'm gonna tell you now the mistake that I've made. So when he called me, we had this very short conversation about starting working together. And I said, look, I am not interested in any money. I am interested in knowledge. I'm interested in experience. And I'm ready to work for you for free. And then you pay me when you feel that I deserve. So it was both a good thing, but also the first mistake when I now look back at it, because of course he said yes, and of course we started to work because it's a no-brainer. I mean, why would you even reject that kind of offer? And then I worked for free for 6 months. So what I would do differently is that I would charge him immediately. Now, I have already proven the concept. So I've already shown him that he can get millions of views every week. So the moment you realize that you already have a proven concept for someone who is much wealthier than you, the best way is to charge him immediately. So you start a contract, you have your retainer, and then you just start working with him for money. So what I did actually, I worked another 6 months for free, doing these crazy views, like billions of views for 6 months without any money. And after 6 months he said, look, now I think we can start a contract. And then I said, okay, finally, I mean, I can get paid from what I'm doing for him, because I was spending maybe 4 or 5 hours per day working only for him. But that was very different kind of motivation for me, because back then everything was very different. Like when you have no experience and now starting working with important people, hits very differently than it is now, because now it's kind of very normal thing, very usual, but back then it was very different. But the problem also was that I also knew his earnings. See, when you're working with rich people, what they try to do is they try to maximize your skills. So for example, if you start working as an editor, they also want to trust you in posting, in managing social medias, and then turning into marketing expert, for example. They want everything in one place. They don't really like to diversify their team skills. They're really like very euphoric about this idea of having one super intelligent person managing everything for them that can eventually like become the brain of that aspect, for example, the marketing part. So that's what he was trying to do with me. So now I was trying to handle his marketing, his social media pages. I grew his social media pages from 2 million followers to 8 or 9 million only in 10 months. But also like keep in mind that most of the work I was doing for free. And also I'm gonna reveal some numbers here, because when he said that he's gonna pay me now, he sent me a contract, but there was no mention about the amount of money that I would get. So I just signed the contract, sent him back, and then I was waiting for the retainer. Also, it's worth noting that at the time, after 6 months, I was also making money on YouTube. I guess I was doing maybe on average $6,000 on YouTube, being just a one-man show for me, without any editors, without any team. So for a person who was living alone, I mean working alone, it's a good amount of money, especially in the country that I'm living. And of course, like when you wait for a retainer and you have done so much for that person, you also expect that the amount of money is going to be somewhat solid, not a lot, but something that also reflects your work that you have done. And so the next day I received $950 from unknown sender. The first thought that I had is that this is not gonna be him for sure, because when you also like have all these numbers, all these earnings that you have actually brought him, the difference was actually 1000x. And by the way, before sending that money, he said, I'm gonna send you money so you can finally hire some people, because I don't want you to edit videos. I want you to finally hire some people and teach them what you are doing so you can be more effective. And I said, okay, I promised him that all the money that he sends, most of the money I'm gonna use for a team. So imagine like you receive $900 and some people expect you that you're gonna have a team now. And I think that's also the problem for some people who are not living in first world countries, because when you're not living in the US, UK, the people you're gonna do business with, they think that $100 is gonna be a very, very big amount for you. So at the time I decided that I'm gonna have an honest conversation with him. Look, I don't know about your ideas and your views about the place that I'm living, but I don't want to appear someone who is greedy, who became monetary driven. But honestly, the thing that you have sent me is not even enough to hire one person. Because maybe some lunatics like me are gonna be ready to work for free. But when it comes to time when I'm gonna hire now, believe me, no one is gonna work for free. Usually people work for free if you are some very important person already. So they can, I don't know, gain some credibility or maybe just get some more clients using your name as their partner. But when you're a no-name, no one is going to work for free or for less money. It's also like the opposite when some people who have worked for less amount of money in a big company, and when you offer them to work for your company, now all of a sudden they ask for much more money than they used to have. And first you don't really understand why it even happens, because you actually knew that this person was making $500 a month for a worse job that he was doing, because also you knew that he wasn't really enjoying his previous work. So now all of a sudden you are offering them a bit more money, much better conditions and much more freedom in the work. And all of a sudden, because you are a small company, they ask for much more money. That's also one of the most counterintuitive things in business that you start to realize from the day one. Because see, when you're starting an agency or a company or something that you're starting on your own, your expectations are very different from reality. Okay, just a quick break, because I've been talking about running agencies and the difficulties of running an agency. But there are also some things here that can make your life as an agency owner much easier. For example, 2-3 years ago, there was no AI, there was no automations, there is nothing that could actually make your work much easier for you. And as a leader, as a CEO, as agency owner, you need to be very adaptive. For example, if there are some new AI tools or some new technologies that come around that could massively help your business, you need to take advantage of them immediately. Not just wait until the train is gonna pass, but use it at the right time. So when you're an agency, you are also using too many tools for your team, for your business, whatever it is that actually drains your wallet sometimes. I think you can also relate that as an agency owner, I'm having too many memberships, too many subscriptions, just charging every single day that I don't really know where is it from. But I know that it's from some AI tools or some editing tools, for example. But the problem is when they are too diversified, they can be also very expensive. And according to calculations of our today's sponsors, on average, every agency owner is spending $1,600 a month on various subscriptions. And what High Level did, they just combined all these subscriptions in one place. So everything that you need to run an agency is available at only $97 a month. So let's say you are paying separately for your funnels, for your websites, for the CRM, for AI tools, for client communication, or some automations. That's going to cost you way more money. But High Level starts only at $97 a month for that kind of all-in-one setup. So if you want to make your life as an agency owner much easier, just follow the link below. Okay, so whatever, I had this conversation with him. I explained the situation that I not really monetary driven, so I'm still that hungry and professional kid actually. But if we really want to grow this department of marketing, we need much more budget. And he actually said yes and sent me 5,000 more. So like you see just the difference after that one small conversation, from 900 to already 5 to 6K. And that's also the power of negotiation, because you also need to understand when to talk and what to talk actually. Yeah, because sometimes just being silent and adapting to whatever it is gonna cost you much more in the future. And you know what's interesting, that now when I'm telling you all these problems and all these fake expectations of people who usually start something, I'm doing both a favor and I'm also doing something bad for you, because sometimes when you also know the reality, you don't start. I think that's worse than just starting and then falling to the trap, I think. Look, after all these difficulties, now when I look back, I would do exactly the same thing. I would start no matter what. Because for me, it's much better to start and then figure out how to solve all these problems than just not start and just be in the same place for another 3 years. So my message is that you are gonna start as someone delusional, and that's not a bad thing. In fact, it's much better to start as delusional, because when you're delusional, the problems are gonna be much smaller for you, because your dreams and your goals are gonna be much bigger than that. The problem with me is that my delusional period lasted for much longer than it should be. What I'm saying is that there is gonna be a transformation somewhere in the middle, that now you need to convert your mind from being delusional to being rational. Because in business, if you're not rational enough, you're not gonna survive for sure, because you are in a room full of very rational people who are just very opportunistic, and they see everything in numbers, not just emotions, not just in friendship. So what I'm saying is that the thing that lasted for me for a year of being very delusional kid, I want it to be very shorter for you, because the only thing that I would change in my past is that delusional part. It was a nice period actually, because you had all this hope, all these dreams, but when you realize after a year that your expectations were not the same as the reality, now you feel very bad about yourself, and you look at everything in the past as something that took advantage of you. And another thing about relationships with your client is, I think it's not really a good idea to befriend your clients immediately or cross some personal boundaries, because see, when you are much younger than all these people, you might see them as your friends, as your mentors, but they usually see you as someone who is making more money for them. And I think that's a very dangerous play to be in, because after some time you realize that the friendship was actually one-sided. So they looked at you as someone who they can just monetize as much as possible. So they just look at your skills, at your perspectives, and they know that you are also ready to work for very little money. That's very dangerous. So you need to really identify the real motivation of people about you, so you can have the same motivation about them. So for example, if someone is seeing you as just a person doing the money, it should be mutual. It's gonna be a win-win situation for both sides, not just one of them. Because see, when you are working with someone who is your role model, that butterfly effect is gonna last for some time only. And also what usually happens when you really befriend some of your clients that you really shouldn't. In 99% of cases, you're gonna have some problems with your retainer. For example, when someone who is your client, but you see him as your role model, as a friend, every time he's gonna delay the payment or not pay you at all for months, you're gonna treat it as a friendly move from your side. So you just think of him that he's in some trouble, he has some financial difficulties, and now you as a friend need to also carry that burden with him, not just treat him as a client. But in reality, they had that money. So you really can see them in private jets, you can really see them in very expensive dinners, having these vacations. But you are so delusional at the moment that you think that it's just for some social media exposure. It's not really what reflects in business, but it's not true. So what usually happened in my case is that I had clients that would delay the payments or even not pay at all for a long time. And I mean, during all that time, the team was working for their projects. And then I decided I'm gonna test them. Now fast forward 2 years, when I already had hundreds of clients, worked with many high status people, and wasn't that delusional at the moment because I now started having some financial difficulties in my agency. Paradoxically, like, my client base was growing up, but the income was shrinking down. So that's not something that you really need to let happen, because you are making all this money for other people, but when you see that it's not reflecting your income, there is something wrong there. You need to identify that moment immediately, not just like me. I think my clients owed me maybe 70k. That at the time was just enormous money for me, so it actually could save my company. So I tested them, just sending a very long message. I said, look, I have only 1 month to save my company, or I'm gonna fire everyone and just close down the agency and not work anymore. See, I'm not treating you as my client. As you know, I treat you as my friend, as my mentor, as my whatever it is. As we both know, there were many months that have not been paid, and actually that money can save me, but I don't ask for those payments. I just need a payment for the next month. So I know that you have not paid for X amount of month, for example, but I just need the next payment to be very consistent, so I can really deliver the same amount of work with the same quality as before. And you know, all of them replied me with the same text, like, for sure, I mean, they said, I'm sorry for all those previous failed payments. And they said, sure, we can just carry on the work, continue as usual, and they will pay after 30 days. So what I did, I told the team to work as usual. But deeply in my heart, I knew that my expectations are gonna be blown after 30 days, because after 2 years of being just delusional, now you see the reality and you have been through that before. So now you know this pattern. Something is very familiar to you. You have been through this before. So after 30 days, when I texted them about the payment, my messages were ghosted. Simply. I mean, that was really a surprise for me. As I said, I knew it's gonna happen, and I think that's my mistake. I think that's on me, so I take it. But what we did, we stopped working for all of them, and after 3 days of doing nothing for them, they have seen the difference in their socials immediately. So they've seen that now they gain almost no followers, no new views, and no new videos. So it was even painful for me when they reached out to me after 3 days, all of them, just saying the same thing, like, hey, can I send a payment, or hey, can we carry on the work, the views are down, what's the problem? I mean, and only that idea that they were pretending that they didn't know what's the problem was very, very painful for me. So that's my first lesson for me, that I realized that all the clients that I have are not the right clients for me, and I don't really need to let everyone in. There need to be some qualifications. The problem is that you might think of yourself that you are underestimating yourself, but the problem deep down there is that you are overestimating them. So you think that if you are very honest towards them, they will be honest towards you as well. But unfortunately, the world is not that symmetrical. So no matter what they tell you, no matter what they show you, being too impressed is also not a good idea. Even if you are impressed deep down your heart, just don't show it. So the moment they see that you are impressed, believe me, you're gonna lose the deal. See, the moment you are showing them that you're impressed, you are creating the subordination between you and him when they are on the top and you are much lower than them. So no matter where you live, how old are you, just remember that you don't need to underestimate yourself. It doesn't mean that they are wealthier than you. They are much richer, they have a bigger team. You need to remember that the reason that he's working with you is that you're actually very valuable. If you are valuable, they also need to learn how to appreciate your skills. Because see, only the fact that I just disappeared for 3 days and they start bombarding my phone for a month, that's an indicator that everything that we've done for them is much important. And you see, after 6 months, when I see their views and I see how their social media game is at the moment, I just wish them better. So what I'm saying is that it's okay to do some free work at first for people who are much higher than you. So I still think that it's a very great strategy to do some work to gain some clients, but you also need to be very good at the timing. So you need to understand when to ask for the retainer. Because one thing that I forgot to mention is word of mouth also works very well in this business, because every time you are doing some great work for your client, the friends and the partners of your client are also going to ask who delivered these results for you. And then he's going to also refer those clients to you. So if you are an agency owner, you just started or you are in the business for a few years, my honest advice is that it's okay to be delusional at first, but you also need to work on yourself as a person. Because the problem with professionals and the agency owners is the mindset difference. Because see, when you are just a one-man show, you have completely different mindset, and it's not the mindset that you need when you're an agency owner. So when you start to hire people, when you start managing clients, it requires a whole different mindset than what you used to have. It's also the problem with most of the creators, because the creator's mindset and the mindset of a business owner is completely different. And when creator is turning into a business owner, they realize that now they have responsibilities and also they need to have some skills that they didn't have. So they need to develop it like on the way. So just improve yourself as well. Not just improving the team, improving the work that you do, but also improve yourself as a person. And what about my agency? When I say I'm closing it down, I don't really mean shutting it down completely. I'm just doing a restart. I'm just doing Financian 2.0. Sometimes it's okay to just take a step back, analyze your mistakes, and just start from scratch. Even if you are gonna change your team, or you're gonna change your clients, or you need just to increase your price and then start over, it's okay. And another thing that you need to understand as an agency owner is that your price is not going to be the same for years. If you are used to work for an X amount of money, you need to understand that when you are increasing your quality, scaling your team or increasing the number of your clients, you also need to start targeting much higher quality clients. So there comes a time when you need to increase the price so you can target much better people. I know that you're going to lose some clients, but when you increase your price, you're going to target much better people. And eventually you're going to make much more money with much less work. I want to tell you some story about this price thing in business. So I remember I used to work for my uncle in his shop. And it wasn't like in a very fancy place. It was just an old school small shop on the street. And those were the times when there was no marketing, no social media, nothing. So I was maybe 16 or 17. So I remember when my uncle decided that he's gonna increase the sales by just making more discounts. So we just did massive discounts for that day. And I remember my uncle's face when all people came and asked for more discount. I mean, the discount that we've done that day was very disrespectful towards us. Having a discount at like 10 or 20%, it's okay. But we discounted items at 70, 50%. And the most disrespectful part for you is that when people, your clients, come and ask for more discount. So now you realize that the problem wasn't the price. It was your clientele. So as an agency, one thing that I learned is that the clients that are asking for discounts are not those type of clients that you would like to work with them after a year. Clients that usually ask for discounts are usually also the most problematic clients. Because one thing that I've noticed is that the clients that never asked for discounts, I have never had any problems with them regarding deadlines, regarding their expectations, because sometimes they have much higher expectations against the money that they are paying. So some clients are paying this much and expecting this much results. So what I would advise is just aim for higher quality clients, and those clients are usually much more expensive.